Welcome to Capital Tiger Bay. I'm Lee Hinkle, a club past president from the way back machine. All the boys who are officers are presently indisposed or are afraid of today's speaker. So I've been called back into service. It's appropriate, really. Our speaker today is the Florida Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And speaking of the Wayback Machine, I served as cabinet aide to former Commissioner of Agriculture, the late Doyle Connor, as one of the first women on his executive staff. And I started that position, Commissioner, the year before you were born. So it's great to see you follow in my footsteps. Well, times have changed. You're the first woman Commissioner of Agriculture. I was the first woman president of Tiger Bay. Refer to the screens. When I became the first president of Tiger Bay, this is how I was portrayed. The members of the Tiger Bay board couldn't fathom a woman as president, so they told me I'd have to be the Tiger Bay queen. Well, as you can see, the caption beneath that photo was my motto: queens never bargain. I didn't bargain, and I became the first in a very long line of distinguished women Tiger Bay presidents. Oh, by the way, that photo, everything below the chin, was our jokester-in-chief, the late, great Scott Daly, who really pulled one over on me with that photo at our annual Tiger Bay installation of officers. For almost 30 years, I have asked Sarah Ann Daly, his wonderful wife, if she could find that dress. And she told me, like Monica Lewinsky's blue dress, it hadn't been seen since. Please note, I don't smoke cigars, I don't drink beer, and I dang sure don't wear shoes like that. And so today, Commissioner Fried, things really don't always change. This is how you're portrayed. I guess this is the downside of placing your picture on every gasoline pump in the state of Florida, which, by the way, I think is a pretty brilliant marketing move. And so we want you to recognize yourself as you motor around Florida, so we'd like to present these likenesses to you.
That's awesome. Fantastic. They'll go up in the office.
So, Commissioner Fried, to join you in solidarity at the head table today, I have women who like to be in charge of things, just like you. May I introduce them, please? And if you would hold your applause until all these amazing women have been introduced. Your left, my right, Lisa Brown, President and CEO of the Tallahassee Leon Credit Union. Heather Mitchell, President of the Tallahassee Community College Foundation and formerly President of the United Way of the Big Bend. Stephanie Bowden, External Affairs Specialist for Comcast. And if you ever needed a friend in front of your television, it's Stephanie. I'm just saying. To your right, my left, is Ann McKenzie, a former legislator representing Florida House District 99. She was Majority Leader, Chairman of Finance and Tax, and Rules. Allison Tan, former Chairman of the Florida Democratic Party and a current candidate for the legislature. Our esteemed speaker, Commissioner Nikki Fried, who will be introduced less appropriately by past club president Tim Center. And we tried to get him to disguise himself as a woman, but he said no. So if you'd give a round of applause for these distinguished guests. So on to our program. Tim, would you do the honors?
My pleasure. I'll take the clicker. Thank you, Lee. This head table is exactly why I joined Tiger Bay. Beautiful, smart, powerful women. It's also why I married my wife. Let me tell you a story. A long time ago, in a galaxy close to home, a period of unrest came upon this peninsula state as the Democratic Party began to lose its grip under Ann McKenzie's leadership at the power at the Capitol, fell into the evil empire of the Republican Party, losing the House, the Senate, the governorship, and the cabinet, and every executive branch agency. Until this year. Until our guest, Nikki Fried, was elected statewide to be Florida's 12th Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, guaranteeing her a spot in the top 20 list of commissioners of agriculture voted in Florida. Thank you for those people who did math real quick. And as a member of the cabinet, she has finally relieved Jimmy Petronas in his role as the cabinet's eye candy. So we thank you very much for that as well. It was a hard burden for him to take, I tell you. So where is Nikki from? It's as though you've hailed from some rebel planet called Miami. She is of Gator royalty, a former student body president at the University of Florida, where she earned her undergrad, her master's degree, and her law degree. And she is a member of the esteemed Florida Blue Key. Yes, the force is strong with this one. Florida Trend magazine, even if you missed this in the January edition, I just think is the best damn ad ever in a long time in Florida Trend. They published an ad, it wasn't even a full page ad, from the Rebel Alliance, also known as Holland & Knight law firm, which congratulated their alumni, Governor Ron DeSantis, Attorney General Ashley Moody, and our guest today, Commissioner Nikki Fried. So I guess that makes Holland & Knight basically to state government what Goldman Sachs is to the U.S. Treasury at this point. So they are truly Imperial Polk County's kingmakers, and queenmakers now in this case. She campaigned on removing obstacles, using the force, I'm sure, of medical marijuana implementation, and much like Jabba the Hutt, it was clear that John Morgan was keeping her on a short leash. Oh, come on, John Morgan, he's got to fund the Rebel Alliance. You know that's how this whole thing works. She was the head of the felony division at the Alachua County Public Defender's Office. She's had her own lobbying firm, and she donates her time to a number of organizations. What's even better, I love it when somebody from South Florida comes to Tallahassee, they become part of the community. I think we're very welcoming in that way, and you've been very, very awesome in using your powers for good and not evil. The championing, the pardoning of the Groveland Four was very, very helpful. She has helped raise funds here locally for Whole Child Leon, which we appreciate your commitment to that. And all of this before she's even reached her 42nd birthday. I used to be young once. I saw Star Wars in the theater when it was first released. Please know, Nikki, that I knew Princess Leia. Princess Leia was a friend of mine, and you are no Princess Leia. But I'll tell you, I love that you're fresh from Florida. And clearly we know in Florida, when the sun's out, your buns are out. Ladies and gentlemen, your Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Nikki Fried.
Thank you so much, Tim, for that wonderful introduction. And I do not know, I guess, how you got onto this table of all women, but I'm glad that you're up here. And I definitely thank you for paving the path and paving the way for women in agriculture. So thank you so much. I, again, am Nikki Fried. I'm Florida's 12th Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And I want to thank you all for being here today, engaged in our civic society, and for subjecting everyone to the same claws and sharp readiness and titles, regardless of our titles and our affiliation here at Tiger's Den. As a triple gator, they always taught me at the University of Florida to be ready for a battle when it comes to the Tigers. So I am ready. And as the first woman elected to this position and the first Jewish female ever elected to statewide office, the people entrusted me with this office signifies that they wanted something new, a new hope for the state of Florida. I wasn't chosen by our fellow Floridians because I looked like, acted like, walked in the same boots as my predecessors. I believe it was because I have a different vision for this department and the opportunities that we have to look forward in the state and to prepare our changes for the future and our challenges and to make life better for all Floridians. Oh, hi, Mayor. Shout out to the Mayor, I saw you. It's because the people of Florida wanted leaders that have the courage to make a difference, who bring a new approach to governing our state, and who strive every single day for results. And as Commissioner, that is exactly what we are doing. But before I go any further, I also wanted to say and to show support for our local governments and to tell you that you have a friend here in the Commissioner's office, and to know that time in and time out that we are seeing, unfortunately, up here in Tallahassee, the infringement upon local control. So know that you have somebody up here who's going to continue to fight for the local control, because you are the ones in our local governments who know your constituents the best. The ones who voted for you have as much say and as much power in what goes on in your local communities than your members of Congress and your state and House representatives. So I am here for local governments. And I also believe that we have a bold agenda and a fresh vision for what the state of Florida's farmers and consumers and families should be. As you all know, agriculture is the second largest economic driver here in our state. We have 47,000 farmers and ranchers. We employ over 2 million people in the agriculture commodities across our state. We export to 164 countries, $132 billion worth of economic impact here in our state. But our agriculture producers face a challenge every single day in our economy and in our environment. And we are committed to helping them adapt, compete, and thrive. The future of our state and the nation depends greatly on our ability to produce fresh, nutritious supply for all. Our success and our child's success is tied directly to the success of our farmers and of our ranchers. Our department will continue to partner to our agriculture community with a forward-thinking approach that ensures that we have access to alternative crops and innovative technology. Innovation is everything. And that's why in the coming weeks, I'm going to be appointing a brand new committee that is going to be involved with innovation and technology in agriculture, bringing together the best minds across our state and across the world, having members of also Israel and Holland and Canada on this innovation committee, to bring the best technology and best practices here to our state. Innovation was also a key mission when we took our trip to Israel last week and came back. We saw firsthand technology and research that's being done in Israel on citrus greening, on water supply sources, on blue-green algae, conservation issues, precision agriculture, and research on medical marijuana like we have never seen anywhere else in the world. And so now we're looking at trying to take that innovation, that technology that we saw in Israel, and bring it back here. In fact, we actually saw a company that is able to create water out of air. They use the humidity out in the land, and in Israel, they have no water. It is a desert, and the fact that they've been able to create a fertile land is because of the innovation and technology that they've been able to advance. So we're looking forward to bringing that here into our state, utilizing it during disaster times and bringing fresh water to our citizens, utilizing it in our school system, making sure that we're not having lead water fountains, but actually having fresh water that we can have an innovative approach to. And talking about water, Florida's farmers are also key allies in protecting our natural lands and our waterways for generations to come. We have a unique opportunity to work together on climate change and conservation of our environment. As you'll see, as the only Democrat in the cabinet, but also having a governor, the two of us are steadfast in our support for the environment and moving forward. So you'll see a lot of things from our administrations and a lot of things from the cabinet where we are putting state before party, because it's important to make sure that we are not doing what is happening in Washington, D.C., where you're seeing bickering happening like we have not seen in generations. We need to make sure here in Florida that we are the leaders, showing the rest of the country of what it's like when you have opposing parties come together for the best interest of their citizens. And no state in America is more vulnerable to the intensifying effects of climate change than here in Florida, including stronger hurricanes and fast-moving wildfires. Through our department's Office of Energy, we are looking into new collaborative approaches to increasing renewable energy production and mitigating climate change. ensuring Florida does its part to build a sustainable future and create clean new jobs and energy. Combating red tide and blue-green algae, choking our waterways and threatening our communities demands our full attention and our efforts. That is why a few weeks ago, I appointed a brand new director of our ag water policy. Someone who has experience in bringing stakeholders together will help us implement real solutions to this crisis and find ways to reduce pollution in the water sources upon which we all rely on. The only way forward is together. And the only way that we're going to do that is make sure that our Floridians come first and not partisan politics and pointing fingers. We must all have seats at the table to make sure that our water is protected and preserved and cleaned for generations. The safety of our Floridians also extends to the threat that we face every day when it comes to gun violence. The time to say nothing and do nothing is over and has long since passed. I unfortunately was reminded of this just 2 days ago when I was over at Pulse and remembering the 3-year anniversary of that tragedy that took 49 lives from us because of hate and bigotry. And to know that we are all going to stand together to make sure that love wins over hate. And this is going to be a collective effort from everybody across the entire United States and here in Florida. The failures of our licensing program by our previous administration were serious. The Division of Licensing was understaffed and unprepared to meet the challenges of over 2 million license holders for concealed weapons. That is why it was one of my top priorities, not only during the election, but also taking office, that we come in and fix the concealed weapons program. And I'm happy to say that we had received 25 new full-time employees for our licensing division. This will make sure that we come in and we'd have a more precise, complete background checks for every single person who applies. You know, when I first got into office, everybody was scared. Oh my God, a Democrat is in charge of guns. She is going to take all of our guns. And I kept trying to remind people that, one, I have a concealed weapons permit and I own a gun. My job is to do my job and to follow the law. And so not only we come in here, we changed our leadership strategy, we changed and put a different person in charge of our division, a second number 2 changed, and we changed the culture of our entire licensing division. And so now that we have a new leadership in place, a new culture, we've actually reduced the amount of time to get your concealed weapons. When we walked in, we were at 93 days. The statutory limitation is 90. Since taking office, we are now down to 45 days. So a Democrat came in and fixed the problems. But it shows really what it means to have a different voice and a different type of leadership in positions like this, and how government is actually supposed to work when you take bureaucracy out of the equation and just try to do your job. So you have my word here and now that when someone applies for that concealed weapons permit, they are going to get a complete and full background check as required by our laws. We are also committing ourselves to protecting our consumers, elevating consumer services within our department and giving it full attention. Day one, I came in and actually created a deputy commissioner overseeing all of our consumer affairs. She is down in South Florida. She was up for a federal judgeship. Mary Barzee Flores, some of you may or may not know, was a fantastic leader down in South Florida, and I'm so honored and privileged that she decided to join our administration and become a deputy commissioner down there, and is fighting every single day for our consumers. We must strive to protect our consumers against fraud. I am tired of Florida being #1 for fraud. It's great, #1 for football, education, beaches, but fraud, I'm not okay with. So we are doing our job every single day to protect our consumers and to make sure that we are no longer one after my administration. We have gone and visited our skimmers and our gas station pumps all over the state of Florida. One, yes, to see my beautiful picture at every gas station, but more importantly, to go after these skimmers that are all over our state. Last year, we got over 1,200 skimmers. Each skimmer is valued at $1 million of fraud to our consumers. And just this year, we have over 290 skimmers that we have found throughout the state of Florida. So as these criminals are getting more and more, create new and innovative ways of getting into the skimmers and getting into the gas station pumps, my team is diligent to make sure that we are getting there first. We are getting the skimmers out of there, and we're protecting our consumers and making sure everybody knows, especially during tourist times, exactly what to be looking for at the pumps. So we are doing our job, and part of that job is education. And while we're fighting to protect and help Floridians, we also must be listening to them. The people of Florida spoke loud and clear, thank you to John Morgan, and the constitutional amendment that passed with 72% of our citizens for medical marijuana. And I've met people all across the United States and all across the world who are suffering from stage 4 cancer, patients who are needing a little bit of help getting off of opiates and other pharmaceutical drugs, parents who are looking for relief from their kids who are having seizures 10, 20, 30 times a day. And having access to medical marijuana gives them a new quality of life to get off the pharmaceutical drugs, get them ways to make their lives better. You know, as the election and the recount wasn't bad enough, the first and second recounts, unfortunately, during that Thursday of the election week, also found out that my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And so my first gut feeling was, what can I do to make sure that as she is going through her chemo treatments and that she's going through this, that she has all of the available access. And so we quickly got her onto the registry and made sure that she had access to medical marijuana. But unfortunately, there's so many Floridians across the state who don't have a daughter who understands the medical marijuana laws. So we need to do a better job educating our citizens and educating our doctors to know that there is relief out there, and there's people here in Tallahassee who will continue to fight for them, just like I will fight for all of you. We also have a moral obligation to act in those best interests. And we need to make sure that we are increasing our license holders to make sure that the open marketplace is there for our medical marijuana patients. Stronger competition means it becomes more affordable, getting them out of the black market and getting them into our licensed dispensaries. And we need to fight for health care for the medical marijuana patients. I talk about not just access to medical marijuana, but it's about affordable access. The prices are still too high in the dispensaries, and there is no reason whatsoever that our health insurance companies should not be starting to cover this as part of their annual visits and part of their co-pays. So that is something that I have been fighting up in DC, down here in Florida, to see what we can do to relieve that pressure and that stress from our patients. And of course, banking is still a huge issue in the medical marijuana world. I felt that firsthand during my campaign, when not only one, but two banks closed down my bank accounts for my campaign because I was accepting dollars from the medical marijuana industry. So until which time that we get health insurance and banking, this still becomes, people still feel this as an illegal marketplace. So we need to normalize the market, not only to get capital here into our state, into our country, but also provide access to our patients in an affordable manner. And also, a great new thing happened at the end of 2018. Hemp was reclassified. So people have been always confused about the differences between the two plants. You've got the cannabis, you've got the marijuana plant, which has euphoric, and then you've got this amazing hemp plant that kind of got coupled into the war on drugs back many, many, many years ago, way before I was born. But luckily in the Farm Bill in 2018, hemp was reclassified and allowed during the Farm Bill each state to create a hemp rules and laws in their own states. So that's exactly what we did. We came in during this legislative session and made people understand the benefits of the hemp plant. Everybody knows that hemp can create the CBD oils and all of the medicinal aspects of CBD. The other thing that gets me really excited is the 25 to 35,000 different usages for hemp. It is going to be something that's going to replace all of our styrofoam, our plastics, our paper, hempcrete. It is going to be what I call as an industrial revolution in our state and across the country, and it's all biodegradable. So it really is going to be something that is going to not only provide an economic incentives here in our state, but it's going to be a way that we are going to be able to solve some of the environmental issues that are happening. So the bill actually was sent to the governor this morning. So if anybody has an ear of the governor, encourage him to sign the hemp bill. My team is working diligently to start the rulemaking process. We have 2 workshops next week and 1 the following week. And our goal is to make sure that this is an alternative crop for our farmers. who have been suffering from citrus greening to canker to unfair trade practices across the world to hurricanes. But not only that, but it's going to give entrepreneurs an opportunity to invest in our state and be able to work with our farmers to create these types of products, and obviously the CBD marketplace as well. I have estimated it's going to be a $20 to $30 billion industry here in our state. And I said the word "be." And I know a lot of people have, and reporters in the back, have criticized and scrutinized that maybe I've lost my mind. And I said, well, you just wait. You just wait, because I will tell you that this is going to be something that is going to revolutionize our state, take those dollars back into our state, and be able to put more education, infrastructure, affordable housing. I mean, the endless opportunities to bring this type of money into our state, and I am looking forward to it. And so much so that we created a cannabis director to oversee the medical marijuana expansion as well as the hemp program. So after one of the press gaggles, after one of our cabinet meetings, the press came up to me and said, so you've done all these things, what's next on your horizon? I said, we're going to create a cannabis director. That made international news. We received more applications for our cannabis director than any other position that we received in the office. We received applications from Canada. We received applications from Washington, from Colorado, Canada. And I think one of the headlines in the Tampa Bay Times was, looking for a job that makes $120,000 a year and you don't have to get drug tested, call Commissioner Fried. And they did. But we are very fortunate. We snatched somebody out of Tennessee who I had known in the cannabis world. She came from the banking world first and has been here. Holly Bell has been a champion working with our entire state, trying to get us ready for this hemp revolution. So we are excited for what lies ahead of us here when it comes to expansion of medical marijuana, but also the expansion of hemp here into our state. But despite all these great potentials, we do still face a lot of challenges as a state and as Floridians. Food insecurity is one of my biggest goals to combat in my administration. We are facing it everywhere from South Florida to Jacksonville to the Panhandle. Everyone understands that hunger holds people back. When people are hungry, they cannot succeed. When children are hungry, they cannot learn. The societal cost of food insecurity affects us all. It increases our stakeholders' health care costs, undermines the vitality of our workforce, and hinders our ability of our children to live up to their full potential. This is an issue that has a direct impact on our future. When we ensure people have access to healthy food, this improves their lives and makes our state stronger. Addressing the challenge of food insecurity is an opportunity to invest in the future of our state and change the lives of our neighbors. Just a couple weeks ago, we launched a partnership with Lyft to help increase access to residents down in Miami to local grocery stores. And we are looking to join together with our agriculture community to expand access to and increase education and outreach about fresh and nutritious food. And it's interesting, so part of what we also do is Fresh from Florida. And some of you probably see that branding all over our state and in the grocery stores. And I feel bad for anybody who either goes food shopping with me or actually is around me. So as we are going through, and I'm going through the fresh produce, and I'm going into our strawberries and blueberries and orange juice, and I see people around me going for just whatever is the cheapest. I stop them and I said, no. I say, you see this label? This is fresh from Florida. This is done here in Florida. You are helping your community. And the stuff from Mexico, you really don't want to have. So I feel bad for people who shop around me. They have no idea who I am. And they just think that I'm some crazy activist in the food store. But those types of little things, when you're buying fresh, not only the dollars that we have gotten from the state legislature, every dollar is a $22 return on investment back into our state. So that is to our neighbors, our communities, and that is significant dollars that we are bringing back in. So next time you go to the food store, make sure that you're looking for, not all of them have a Fresh from Florida logo on it, but try to look for produce that is actually says from Florida. Helping our local communities and our local growers helps our economy, helps our state, and you know exactly where it's coming from and what types of pesticides and fertilizers and labor actually went into the actual process. So some of the other things that we are facing and challenges, we need to help people, and we need to sometimes give them an extra hand. And I truly believe that when we work together, we rise everybody up in the same, we rise everybody up in floats. We built a team that is responsible and going to be responsive to all Floridians. And we've established some new positions to do exactly this. This includes a first ever Veterans Affairs Director inside of FDACS, with a mission to identify opportunities for our 1.5 million veterans that live here in Florida. And we also created an LGBTQ director who oversees and addresses discrimination in that community and listens to the voices that have historically not had a voice in the table here in Tallahassee. We also, the first week in office, we expanded, the first time ever, the anti-discrimination clause in a cabinet to LGBTQ members. The responsibility of our office is vast and varied, and we have an opportunity every single day to help people across our state, to feed our families, and to protect and conserve our environment, to strengthen our economy and build a future that we see as bright. Because when people in Florida, our farmers, our ranchers, our consumers, our veterans, our seniors, and families, when they succeed, we succeed, and Florida succeeds. When we listen to the people and take action on our priorities, democracy is functioning as it was intended. And when we put into action long-term vision to tackle problems and better our state, we're making an investment in our future and the futures to come. As a member of the Florida Cabinet, I'm dedicating my service of building a forward-thinking and resilient state, ready to take on the challenges of our future. Governance for the greater good. That is why you elected us as public servants, and that is exactly why I am grateful every single day for this opportunity, and grateful for the 6,753 extra people that voted for me out of 8 million. And if you ever want to know my new 4-digit code on anything, that was really an adventure. For those of you who have been on a ballot before and understand, the buildup of an election and the buildup of the night of elections and watching election results and thinking that the election is going to end that night. We sent everybody home around 11 o'clock on election night with the knowing that the election wasn't over, but went home that night down 44,000 votes. And so went back down. I had my watch party in Broward County, was staying that evening down in Dade, and then went back to our hotel, and my significant other and I walked to the beach until 6 o'clock in the morning, left our cell phones behind, and said, okay, now what? While we have already triggered the recount, what does the next chapter of our lives look like? And as we're planning out our future and plans of taking over the state and the Democratic Party, all this happening between the hours of 12 and 6 a.m., we get back to the hotel room, and I was ready to call my team back to the war room and say, all right, this is the plan. This is the plan. We're in recount mode already. This is how we're going to move forward. And it actually contemplated, not knowing anything else at that point, because I'm also pragmatic and didn't necessarily want the rest of the state to endure a recount just for my election and the amount of cost that would have taken. And I'm also, as you heard, I have a master's in campaigning, a poli-sci degree, a law degree with student body president. I understand politics, I understand elections, and I understand numbers. And the amount of cost that it would have taken and toll on the state of Florida to do a recount to know what the end result was going to be, didn't necessarily want the state of Florida to endure. And said, okay, well, if that's the case, what does that mean as far as making sure that we still got our vision and our priorities through? And so I planned on calling Matt Caldwell and having a very frank conversation with him about how we move together forward. But then got back to the hotel room, looked at my phone, and saw that it had blown up overnight. And saw that from 44,000 votes, we were down to 17,000 votes. Just overnight, and started to still called my entire team into the war room, and by the time that had happened, we started getting the buzz that there were more ballot boxes out there. And so we started to deploy the teams out to Broward, Dade, Palm Beach, and still heard that there was ballot boxes out in Hillsborough County. And by the end of that day, we said, we know we have won, we just need to find where all the ballots are. And as the day went on, we kept hearing more and more about that, and more ballots were being counted. And so now, not having slept on Tuesday evening, now we're going into Wednesday. And in my head, doing the math and the calculations, saying, okay, I'm winning Broward County by 72% plus. How many more boxes need to be out there in order for me to actually take over? And so that was Wednesday night's mind tricks all night long, and pressing refresh on every supervisor of elections websites. And so Thursday morning around 10 a.m., another ballots were released from Broward County, and at that point took over at 500. And so then the media team and my team started saying, okay, well, we got to get you onto TV, and we need to proclaim the victory. And I said, I have now not slept in 2 nights. You definitely do not want me in front of the cameras. I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth. And so got a little bit of sleep, and finally that evening we did declare victory. And then the recounts happened, and then the other ones happened. And it was, certainly I am so grateful and thankful to the people across the state of Florida who stood up and stepped up to be at every of the voting precincts across the state to count not only the machines but also the manual recounts across the state. But yet, as every recount was done, everybody would then message me, hey, you just won 5 more votes in Leon County. You just lost 10 more in Jackson County. So that happened for another 72 hours. So imagine the drama and the emotional and mental curve every single time I received a message. But at the end of it all, we were victorious by 6,753 votes. And I am every single day so grateful and humbled by this experience, and knowing that it could have gone the other way. And so I want to make sure that every single day of my administration, every single day of my term, that I am doing what is in the best interest of the citizens of our state and not taking any single day for granted. And so know that you have somebody up here, and I have actually physically moved to Tallahassee, so I'm also a Leon County resident. And know that you have somebody up here who's going to continue to fight for the best interests of the state of Florida. And I'm so honored that I had the opportunity to speak with you here today and working with everybody as we keep Florida growing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fried. We enjoyed that presentation, and we'll take some questions from members.
Steve Burtman, 2 questions.
1 question.
Could you talk a little bit about the trees that are down in Hurricane Michael area, and what's the long-term plan, and the chances of the drastic fires that are going to come about? And then possibly, if you could just maybe think about this one too, is Felipe Franks a better quarterback than Tim Tebow? Or was it FSU's defense that really kind of turned the tide? Thank you very much.
We'll start with the latter one. Timmy has a very special place in my heart. And no, the Panhandle, I know so many of you have seen it, have seen the TV, have been out there. It was a $1.5 billion economic impact, 72 million tons of trees, 500 million down. That isn't, people that are living in these communities and have been involved in the timber industry for generation after generation after generation, and to go outside and see their life savings, see their child's college funds laying on the ground. And there's no crop insurance because timber is not considered a crop. And so they have no backup besides what's in their own bank accounts. What would have been $1,500 an acre is now $1,500 to get off. So it's a $3,000 deficit. So how do you figure out how to get not only this timber off the ground, but to encourage people to not leave the community, which we have seen. We've saw schools closing down. We've seen hundreds of teachers laid off because kids are not coming back with their families. Is a huge impact and trickle down on the entire economy of that area. Because it's not just the timber, it's people who are coming through to take the timber off the ground and stay at hotels and eat at the restaurants and have their kids living in the communities. So it is a tremendous impact on the entire economy and ecosystem of the community. When you see trees that are beautiful for miles upon miles, that entire panhandle is the size of New Jersey. And you see trees that are down, that is the livelihood, the ecosystem of that community, and that's just been leveled. So it is devastating. And, when I ran for office, Hurricane Michael, I obviously knew what had happened. It was not part of my platform to fix. It was not, but when I saw that it had not been addressed, that we are still waiting for state dollars, federal dollars support, I knew that my voice was imperative into making sure that we got the right access to the dollars in the federal level and the state level. So the other concern is now that we've had one hurricane. Now we're on hurricane season again, but more importantly, we have a dry spout up here is where the forest fires start. So these poor individuals who have been devastated from the loss of their timber now could have the loss of their homes and other building structures when the forest fires start. So my director of forestry, Jim Carls, and his team has been out there every single day, clearing roads, helping local community members, because once the forest fires start, we saw in Bay County just a couple months ago what would have been a 5-acre forest fire turned into 600 because of all of the trees that are down. So we are working very hard to make sure that we are diligent on being there. We did get money from this year's legislature for a new helicopter and new equipment to get out there, and luckily, with the president signing the relief package last week, was meeting with Secretary of Perdue last week as well, getting these dollars down as soon as possible, because the goal is to get these trees off the land as soon as possible and give everybody access to grants so that they can reforest. Because the problem is that it's not like any other crop that you have a harvest and at the end of that year you have a harvest. Timber is a 10 or 20 year process. And so even if they're replanting, there's no return on investment for 10 or 20 years. So without getting this grant dollars to them, they're either going to have to clear the land and sell it to developers, which is not what I would recommend, because that completely changes the environment in that community. And then we lose those lands from agricultural production forever. And also creating alternative crops in the meanwhile too. That's why I was also pushing hemp legislation as much as possible, because this gives them another option to go out there and try to also plant crops. So the goal is get the money down there, get the land cleared, get them to reforest, and also create alternative crops in the meanwhile.
There you are. When we were in Israel together, I asked you a question about hemp, and we talked about the Israelis don't have enough land for hemp, but we certainly do in Florida. And I'm getting a lot of questions from farmers and would-be farmers who want to know when the first crop is going to be put in the ground and how that process is going to work. I filed the first bills in 2014, 2015, and finally got something passed in 2016. So I think, I've got an abiding interest in this. So if you could let us know when the governor signs the bill, what the process is, and how we're going to go forward, and when the first crop is going to be in.
Sure. So the bill got sent to the governor today. So we also know that we are counting down to July 1st when it actually should go into law. We have had numerous conversations with the governor's office. We are hopeful that he actually signs the bill. We're not hearing anything to the contrary. So in the process, we are doing rulemaking workshop. So we have a workshop next week on the 20th in Broward County, on the 21st in Tampa, on the 24th back here in Tallahassee. And so we have said this is going to be, like I said, a revolution. We are making history. And in order for us to make history, we got to do it together. And so I want to make sure that our citizens have as much of a seat at the table of what this hemp program looks like as what's in my head. So we are going to be doing these workshops and listening to the people across the state, from our business community to our farmers, to the entrepreneurs, to the banking, to law enforcement, and making sure that we're putting it into a program that everybody is going to be able to be successful in. So once we're finished with those workshops, we're going to take we're going to have our first draft out beginning of next week, so that people, when we're actually workshopping it, see kind of where we're at, and so then they can actually give suggestions, find loopholes, give advice, change some wordings around. And then once we're done with the workshops, we are then going to tweak whatever we hear back, add, take out, and then hopefully, God willing, that probably by the second week of July, we will have our first set of rules published. And so then at that point, it's up to the attorneys across the state of Florida to not challenge my rules. And so as soon as we go through that period of time, and hopefully we've had such an inclusive process that will be limiting the actual challenges. And then that way, we'll have ours done, and then we send it over to the USDA, and they will have 30 days to review our rules, which I would say, I mean, we're following to a T the Farm Bill, so there should be no reason why they would kick it back. And then once that's done, we'll get seeds in the ground. My goal is by the end of 2019, we will have seeds in the ground in the state of Florida for hemp.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you for your service and especially your enthusiasm. You always look like you're having a ball.
I am.
You really do. My question really has to do with how the feds classify marijuana as a Schedule I drug, and what can Florida and other states do to remove this incredible inconsistency. We've got federal laws that say you can't, increasing state laws that want to, and we've got to resolve this. And what are some of your suggestions and thoughts that we can do so we're all moving in the same parallel direction?
Call your members of Congress. Call your members of Congress. I mean, that's what, the House is ready to go. I mean, there's some pushback in trying to figure out what the states' rights bill looks like as far as criminal justice reform, different aspects of it, but it's the Senate that has been a little bit slower to move things across the finish line. So calling Senator Scott and Senator Rubio to show support is key. Those two sign on, or at least one of two sign on any type of federal legislation, moves it through the finish line a lot faster. And that was actually the words that I got from a lot of the national lobbyists. Says if we can get Senator Rubio signed on to any of these states' rights or their banking bills, you'll see it moving a lot faster in the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Fried. We appreciate you being here, and we'd like you to come back again
I
sometime.
love it. Thank you.